statistical output, we say outcome is equal to model plus error. Now let's define this outcome of the ith term, means a variable I. So the outcome will be outcome I is equal to model I. This I means we are calculating this entire thing for ith term. Plus error I. Let's give it a space I. So in a nutshell, every outcome is equal to model plus error, and if we further define it in the form of correlation, so our outcome is equal to b x I plus error of ith term, right? So if you see in this model, b is the correlation coefficient, and this correlation coefficient we have already said that denoted by r, and it is a standardized measure. So if you have to measure the outcome in form of the correlation, you will put the correlation coefficient, the x, the error, and you will find a total outcome. This is the standardized version. But we can also work on an unstandardized version of this b, or the coefficient. But for that, we need to add something more to the model. And what we will add? Now, if we want to work on a standardized unstandardized model, so outcome will become b0 plus b1 x I plus r, or denoted by, you can denote it by e. So you can now say this outcome is equal to y is equal to this one, b0 plus b1 xy plus error term for the ith item. Okay. So a very important thing to note in this equation is that the outcome for a person can be predicted from the model, okay, where the outcome variable y, we are trying to predict this y from a predictor variable x, a parameter b1 associated with this, and this b1 which is associated with the predictor variable x, quantifies the entire relationship it has with the, because the moment we are putting this b1, it will quantify the entire, because it's a coefficient, so it will quantify the entire relationship of this x with the outcome y, or the outcome variable y. This model differs from that of a correlation, that is the first one, only in that it uses the unstandardized measure of the relationship B. So consequently, we need to include a parameter Since it's an unstandardized version, so we need to include a parameter that tells us the value of the outcome when the predictor is 0. So let's assume if the x is 0, then at that point of time, we need to add a third parameter, a second parameter that can tell us the value of the outcome, even in the case the predictor variable x is 0. So this parameter is B0. So that the difference you can see between the outcome that we get in a case of correlation and the outcome we get when we used this B as a unstandardized value. So you can write this formula in many ways, but actually what we are trying to do, the moment we are using this equation, the parameters B1 and B0 are now, this was only a standardized coefficient in the case of regression, in the case of correlation. Now, in this equation, the B0 and B1 are the regression coefficients, and we'll be using these regression coefficients throughout our entire study, or throughout our entire understanding of what exactly a regression is. So now, as I told you, if you put this equation into a regression equation, you can see that it will become y for the ith term is equal to b0 plus b1 x1 plus error for the ith term, where this b1 is the regression coefficient for the predictor. It could also be the gradient or the slope of the regression line, or it could also tell you the direction or strength of the relationship based on its coefficient value, based on its magnitude and the sign it is having. If it is having a positive sign, then a positive direction of relationship. If it's having a negative sign, then a negative direction of the relationship. Whereas this B0, normally we say y is equal to a plus bx. So you can say this one a. It is the intercept. This B0 means it is the value of y when x is equal to 0. And it is the point at which the regression line crosses the y-axis. So you can see from these figures that how these lines share the same intercept but have different slopes, different gradients. So if you closely look at these lines, okay, you can see, you can understand the concept of the intercept and the gradient. So in the first case, you can see that the intercept is the same, means x and y both are meeting at the same point, whereas gradients are different. Here gradients are same but intercepts are different, means all are moving in one direction, okay, all are having the same gradients but they are having different intercepts, means your this, as I said here, the intercept is the point at which the regression line crosses the y-axis. You can see your regression line is crossing the y-axis at different points. Okay. So this is the concept of a regression line with one predictor. Now I want to, let's say there is a equation or there is a situation where owner of a company is interested in knowing The owner is into music industry, and he wants to know that if they spend a particular amount on advertising budget, how it is going to, or how on the basis of advertising budget are they able to predict the sales in the of the number of albums? Will they able be to predict? Now you can see that the entire prediction is across this line, but there are some deviations from this line. Actually, this is the concept of, if you see this scatter plot, so if you see this line, it clearly shows that more the advertising budget is there, higher will be the chances of sales of the album. So this is the linear line on the basis of which you can uh, predict that if advertising spend budget is more, it could be predicted that the sales of the album would also be more. But here you can find that there are a few lines that are, there are a few points that are deviating from these lines, both in positive direction and also in negative direction. These are called the residuals. Okay. So this residual is the vertical distance between the data points. You can see these are the data points, the vertical distances, these are called the residuals. So these are the vertical distance between a data point and the regression line. So this is the regression line and these are the vertical distances. And every data point, you can see in between every data point, you'll find at least one residual. So every data point has one residual. They could be positive in nature if they are above this regression line, or negative in nature if they are below this regression line. And if the regression line actually passes these points, the residual at that point is 0. So at this point, the residual will be 0, but here they are having a positive value, and below the regression line, they are having the negative value. So you can write the equation for residuals as, see, basically they are termed as error terms. This could be the error that you get out of your regression line. Means whatever you are predicting, since you cannot forecast or predict anything perfectly, so your entire model will be B0 plus B1xi plus error term, which is your residuals. So residual is in fact.
So sir, residual and error are actually just synonyms. I mean, they are the same. I mean, what we call error is residual and error both the same? I mean, or is there any difference somewhere, I mean, in utilization of the term?
No, residual is not the same. I am not saying same, but most often we treat them as a error value. We do not take them into account.
So what is the exact difference? What is the exact difference? I mean, what we call as an error and what we call as a residual?
Okay. See, every model can have some error or deviation, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So whatever the deviation coming from your this equation means the entire you can predict a y based on this your intercept, the gradient, your independent variable x. And
okay, sir. So error comes with the whole model, and residual is for every individual value. Is that so?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Means in between every data point, whatever the error you will find individual error, that you will call as residual. Okay.
Yes, sir. Understood, sir. Thank you. Yeah, understood.
So sometimes even we further do regression on the residuals also to minimize this error term. But finally, what you are getting as an output means after even doing that, treating those residuals, still you will be getting that error term that you have to write in your equation. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Are you get? So in between each data point, whatever you are observing and whatever you have predicted, the difference between this will be the residual. Sorry, this will be minus. Okay. So observed minus predicted value will be your residual. So you can say, so they are sometimes, they are also referred as error term. I'm sorry, small e. they will always exist between two data points where this is the total error in your equation. Got the difference?
Yes, sir. Understood.
So it will be y minus y. There is a symbol I wish to put. Let me see where I can put this symbol. No, I haven't written it. So this is actually the predicted value, observed value or predicted value. It will have a symbol kind of like if I find that symbol in Word, it's very tough to find symbols and write in Word. That's why I prefer LaTeX over Word. So how can I define this from here? Okay, let's not waste time. Okay, just you can put a inverted v over v y. This will show you that this is the predicted value, right? So it is actually the difference between the observed value and the predicted value that is called the residue. Now let's but before moving on to how good is the model, let's do a regression, a simple regression, and then only we can tell that how good our model is in this case. So whenever you are estimating the model, you can estimate your model based on this. And here the total error, that what you could, the question you have asked about what is the difference between the residual and the error. So let me tell you, when we look at this, I have told that residual is equal to observed minus predicted value. So whereas your total error, that is the error term I am talking of, will be the summation of symbol. Am I getting some sigma value here? Let me see. If there's some summation. I am unable to get this some sigma value, so I am just writing it as sum. You can write it as sigma observed minus model square. So this is in this equation, the total error is sum of the observed minus model means what you have predicted whole square, whereas residual is equal to only the difference between the observed minus predicted. Right? Have you got the concept of residual versus total error? So this is the basic difference when we model write the outcome like this, and when we go for, so it will be the b0 plus b1 x plus error, where error is equal to total error is equal to summation of the observed minus the predicted value or the model square. So this will serve as your this error term, whereas residual will be only between two data points. Now let's do one regression and see how much this model can.
Sir, kindly, I mean, I just missed out this point. I mean, why is this B0? I mean, the outcome is BX1 plus error. Why was this B0 added? I just missed out that point.
Sorry?
the structure is outcome is bx1 plus error. I mean, in the second sentence, as you have written, is like b0. This has been added to the intercept. Just repeat this.
Okay. So what I have told that outcome is equal to model plus error. This is a very general equation of the outcome that we write. Okay.
Yes.
So if you take into account the last correlation class, we have written that outcome in the case of correlation will be bxi plus error I.
Yes.
Where I is your ith term, right? Forget about I for this point of time. Let's forget it. So it will be only bx plus error. This b is the coefficient of correlation.
Yes.
Because without using this, you cannot define the entire outcome. But since this b is in a very standardized format, okay. When you are trying to predict something, your prediction becomes in a unstandardized format. So based on one unstandardized this value, you cannot predict the overall outcome. So for that purpose, we have to bring in another parameter which can tell us the value of the outcome even in the case if x is 0. Getting my point?
Okay.
Let's forget about this b0. Now outcome is equal to bx plus error. Clear?
Yes.
Now what if the value of x is equal to 0?
Only error remains.
The total outcome is equal to 0 plus error.
Yes.
Can you predict your outcome?
No, only the error remains. Okay.
So to predict that outcome, in case x is 0, right? You have to bring in another parameter which can predict the value of the entire outcome even in case the x is 0.
Okay.
So you will bring in a second this concept, which is also known as intercept or the slope in case of regression.
Okay. Fine.
So simply you people use that equation y is equal to a plus bx. In regression, you write y. I am just saying it as b0.
Okay.
Nothing. Yes, only the slope. Why I am saying? Because only a plus bx is only applicable to your regression equation. In any case, if x becomes 0, then to explain the entire outcome, you have to bring in this b0. You can write it in any format. Some people write it outcome is equal to mx plus c. Some people write it as outcome is equal to mx plus b, ax plus b. Anything you can write. I am just saying denoting it by b0. Okay. Got the idea?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Now, let's come to the assumption of a linear model, and let's do a linear regression. See, before going for that, let me give you a few concept of assumption of linear model. That what should be the assumptions. First assumption is of additivity and linearity. There should be a linear association between your variables. There should be independence among the variables. Then there should be homoscedasticity, means the heterogeneity of variances should not be there. Then normal distribution should also be there. I have already told you that if you didn't get a normal distribution and still you have to apply, in the last section I have introduced a new concept called bootstrapping. So through bootstrapping you can increase the number of items that comes into your normal distribution curve, or you can say you are just increasing your confidence interval, so that data will mimic to be normally distributed. So if you are not having a normal distribution, you can go for bootstrapping. Now, apart from this, now it's a common question that what should be the sample size for regression? What should be considered as a adequate sample size for applying regression? So the thumb rule says that there should be 10 cases of data for each predictor in the model. So let's say if you have two predictors in a model, so minimum number of cases that you can take is 20, means 20 observations is a required minimum. So let's say you have 5 predictors, so you will need 50, 60, 75, any of the cases will serve adequate for applying regression. But the simplest rule of thumb is that the bigger is the sample size, the bigger will be your estimate of R that you get during your regression. When you apply regression, you will get the value of R and R square both. So higher is your sample size, more will be the estimate of your R, and means you can have better estimates. So try to apply regression on a large sample size. If you don't have large sample size, what you can do, again you can use this bootstrapping. And there is one concept of this what we say size, effect of size. So if you want to know the effect of size, you have to go for the Cohen's test. And as per, I'll be discussing that Cohen's test in my future other class, that how we estimate these effect size. So as per the many authors, this benchmark of Cohen's value should be minimum 0.8 to say that the model is overall significant on the basis of your sample size. So if your Cohen's value or the Cohen's ratio is coming to be 0.8 or more than that, then you can say that whatever the value you are getting or the effect of the size is adequate, means you have an adequate sample size. So there is one Kaiser-Meyer-Olkin also that we apply in EFA, Kaiser-Meyer-Olkin test of adequacy of the sample. But for measuring the effect of the size of your sample, it's better to go for the Cohen's method. But yes, the thumb rule says that when you are applying regression, it's better to go for large sample sizes. So let's go for one regression example using one predictor. So kindly open the data, this album sales.sab. Is this open? Are you able to understand this data? Please tell me if you are able to understand this data.
Sir, what is this airplay and attract? I'm getting this advertisement and sales. Advertisement and sales I'm getting, but what is this airplay and attract?
Okay. See, AdWords means advertising budget, right? Then you have sales in thousands, the sale of the album. See, this is about company owner of album company, of a cassette company or the CD company wants to predict that if they spend on advertisement, how it is going to affect the sales. Can they predict the sales based on the advertisements? So there are 4 variables. So advertising budget is one. Sales of album is a dependent variable. Then airplay, that is not required right now at this point of time. We'll be seeing in this multiple regression. Suppose if those songs are played on radio, okay, will they affect the sales? Another variable. And then attractiveness of the band, means suppose if they are selling the music of different bands, how much the attractiveness of that band is going to affect the sales. Have you got now the concept of all the four variables?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So these two will be using in multiple regression. As of now, we want to only to predict the sales based on the advertising budget. This advertising budget is in pounds over a period of, let's say, it's over a period of 200 days. They spent these amounts are in pounds over a period of 200 days, and they wanted to predict that whether they could predict the forecast on the basis of this data or not. So when they spent $10.26 at day one, pounds, it's in pounds, they sold over 330 albums. When $985 were spent, 120 albums at different point of time. Please remember, this is the data taken at different point of time. Then 145.56 pounds, now it has only 360 sales. So like this there is a variation. Now they want to predict, based on this data, they want to predict how advertising is going to affect the sales. So it's a case of simple regression or regression with one predictor variable. Here we have only one predictor variable, and that is advertising spends. So now go to regression. Select linear. So in the dependent list, you have to select your number of album sales, the dependent variable. In the independent, you have to take this advertising budget. Now here you will have methods like enter, stepwise, remove, backward and forward. So we have the enter method and the stepwise method. Stepwise method is further divided into remove, backward and forward. We'll be discussing this in multiple regression. As of now, you can leave it as default enter. And then only I could be able to explain in a better manner. Somebody asked me in the previous session that what is the difference between multiple regression and hierarchical regression. So now either we can check for all the assumptions, or if we are not having met those assumptions, suppose if this data is not meeting our assumptions of let's say homoscedasticity or normality, then can't we predict the sales based on the advertising? See, the only method of predicting sales based on the advertising is the regression. Now, if there is a violation of the assumptions of homoscedasticity, linearity, normality, can't we predict this sales based on advertisement? If you remember the first very day, the thumb rule that I told, that if the assumptions are not met, you cannot apply a particular test. So what to do? Any idea?
So we will, I think we will transform the data maybe by taking log, or if that
Again,
would help.
The moment you are taking the log and applying regression, you are going to regress the logarithmic function of your variable. And the moment you are doing the logarithmic regression or the logic function, we call it, it turns out to be a logistical regression rather than a linear regression. So that option is not there for converting them into log.
Sir, I didn't got it. Simply taking log will make it logic regression. That's what you are trying to say.
No, simply taking a log and then applying a regression will convert it into the logic function of the regression. When you will apply regression on taking the logarithmic values, it will convert it into the logic function actually. It won't remain a linear relationship. That's why in this case we can't take the log. See, most of the people say that if you take the log, then your data tends to be normal. It's okay. If you take the log again, it might tend to be normal. But if we are conducting a regression on a logarithmic function, it will no more remain a linear regression. It will convert into a logic function of that regression equation. So that option is not there.
Bootstrap method to increase the
in the very last class I told you that if you are unable to meet the assumptions and if you want to want those assumptions you want to apply those statistical tests without assumption, here the good feature that SPSS comes with is creating the mirror images of your data set called as Bootstrap. Okay. Now perform bootstrapping on 1000 samples, though your sample size is 200. Then, since all these normality and all these assumptions are the outcome of the biasness, so just choose bias corrected. What it will do, it will only bring all your data set into a normal distribution curve. That's it. Now go to continue. In plots, do we need to take anything in the plots? We'll take, but as of now, let's leave it. Go to this. So I think you people have got this kind of output. Have you got this output?
Yes, sir.
Please say yes, that I can proceed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So leave this bootstrapped thing. Okay. Only it will tell you, okay, the method we have taken as enter and advertising budgets. We haven't taken any stepwise, so none of the variables have been removed. Now come to the model summary. What does this model summary tells you? Anybody? Can anybody tell me what does this model summary tells you?
So it asks what is the correlation of.
It will only tell you what. Before going for this table, should we look at some other tables?
Coefficient.
So this will only tell you 33.5% of the variance is explained. Anything else that it will tell you?
This table shows also coefficient.
Here you are getting two values, R and R square. So here R is having a value of 0.578. And because there is only one predictor in our case, that predictor was only advertising spends. So if you are having one predictor, this value only represents a simple correlation between the advertising See, whenever there is R, it's a correlation between the advertising expenses that you have taken into account, and so it will tell you only the correlation between the advertising expense and the sales of the album. Even if you do a correlation, you will get a same value. You can check it. You will get the same value. Can you see the correlation value? You are getting 57.8%, 0.578, 57.8. So this will tell you only the correlation value. But this entire this variance could be explained in the form of R square, and it comes to be 0.335. This tells you that the advertising expenditure can only account for 33.5% of the variation in album sales. So advertising spend can only explain 33.5% of the variance of the sales of the album. Rest of the variance remains unexplained by advertising spends. They could be explained by some other variable. So if you take into account only to explain the sales of the album on the basis of advertising spends, only 33.5% of that variation could be explained. So almost 66% of the variation in album sales cannot be explained by advertising alone. There could be some other factors. What these factors could be that can influence the sales, that we can see by checking other of the variables. Now, after this, the second table that is of the most important is this ANOVA table. This ANOVA table tells you why regression. Whenever you apply a regression, there is an ANOVA table that comes with. Any idea? Can anybody tell me what is the relevance of this ANOVA table?
No idea, sir.
If you look closely at ANOVA table, it tells you something? It gives you 3 sum of squares. Is there any relevance of these 3 sum of squares? See, this first sum of square is known as SSM. Okay. Then this second means this that is the model sum of square, SSM. Please mute, somebody is having background noise. Please mute. Then second is the residual sum of square, and third one is the SST, or the total sum of square. Then this mean square tells you MSM, means mean square of model, and then total mean square, that is the second one. Sorry, mean square of the residual, that is MSR. I'll discuss in multiple regression that what is the why this is relevant. But in overall, this ANOVA tells you the individual contribution of variables in the model. But although in this case it's a simple case, there is only one variable in the model, and from this we can infer that this variable is a good predictor. So if your significance value is not good, you can say that the predictor that you are taking is not a good fit to be used as a predictor. So overall, this ANOVA, apart from these sum of squares, the first one being known as SSM, model sum of squares, then residual sum of squares and total sum of squares. This ANOVA table also tells you this significance, that whether your predictor variable is a good fit to be treated as a predictor in this model or not. If it's not a good fit, this significance value won't be there. If there is no significance, if this significance value is more than 0.05, you can say that this could explain the variance, but it's not a good fit for to be used as a predictor. Now,
Sir, hello.
yes.
Yes. Sir, one question. Like I can take an example. If I take example of research study and a study of impact of COVID-19 on Indian economy, on our Indian economy. If we take this study, then we can use this ANOVA and regression model for that for our survey study.
See, whenever you will apply regression, I haven't chosen ANOVA. By default, it will give you ANOVA table.
Okay, in this case, we can apply regression, or in this case, we should apply multiple regression or correlation. I just want to
know what you want to predict.
Basically, I want to study about the impact. Whatever the impact has been created on Indian economy due to this lockdown period or due to this COVID-19 pandemic.
Got your point. See, if your objective is to know that what is the impact of COVID-19 on Indian economy, and you have the data of both, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you want only to know the impact, then in that case, you will go for correlation analysis.
Okay.
The moment your objective is that you want to predict that in 2021, what could be the impact?
Okay.
Based on the data from 2020.
Okay. If we are studying previous historical data, if we are studying historical data and comparing with future data, you can say future impact kya padega?
Based on historical data, you want to predict the future.
Yeah, I'm saying that only.
Then regression.
Okay.
Let's say I have data till date and I only want to know how the COVID-19 has impacted the economy. That becomes a case of correlation.
Okay.
Now I have the data till today and I want to predict that how this relationship between the this COVID and the economy will be there, let's say after 6 months from now. This will become a case of regression.
Okay, sir. Understood.
Regression is always a predictive model. Okay. So now let's see at this table. So we have got ANOVA, we have got this. Now let's see at this table. What is the B0 value that you are getting here? See this model. Y is equal to B0 plus Bx plus error. What is the B0 in this case?
Intercept.
What is the value of B0?
Intercept of y-axis, sir.
I want to know the value of B0 from this table. What is the value of B0?
134. 134, sir. Is it 134? Constant value.
I'm asking the value. Tell me that value from the
Sir, 134. 134.
134.140.
Yes, sir.
So you just put it into the equation y is equal to 134.140 into x, that is we are saying that y could be explained by b0, that is 134.1.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you. Ramlal Bharadwaj ji, can you please mute?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
I'm trying to mute at my end, but I'm unable to. Thank you, Ritika ji. So, where I was? Yes, this table. So what basically I'm trying to say, if you could remember, that this is the value which can even predict your entire model if the value of x comes to be 0. Can you remember from this equation why we have brought this value, this estimate? Why? So that we can predict x even if the value of x is equal to 0. So this is a constant which will always tell you that even if x is equal to 0, means if no money is spent on advertising, then also 1,34,140 albums will be sold. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir.
Because this is in thousands. What we have said, that sale of album in thousands. If you could see, the advertising amount is also in 1,000 and the sales of albums is also in 1,000. If you could see.
Getting, sir.
20,000, 120,000. This is 10.26 thousand pounds, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So what we are trying to say that even if from this table it's very evident that B0 is equal to 134.140. So even if our advertising spend is 0, means we do not spend any amount on advertisement at a given point of time, our sales will be 1,34,140 albums, even in case of 0. So the moment we are increasing our advertising spends, it will go, your entire Y will be 134.140 into the amount of advertising spent, okay, plus error term. Now you can see your this regression, this value, it is 0.096. This is the value of the slope of the regression line. So through this, you can predict that if our predictor variable, that is the advertising budget, is increased by 1, then our model predicts, this model predicts that 0.096 extra albums will be sold in that case. So let's say if we increase our advertising budget by 1,000 pounds, then we can predict that on spending 1,000 pounds, 96 extra albums, multiply this by 1,000, 96 extra albums could be sold. This is our overall prediction. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And this stands, and this model stands statistically significant. So in a nutshell, you can explain the entire equation. Let's come to the PowerPoint. So I have told you will get this summary. If you want to get into details of this summary, I'll share with you the material. Now, what was the significance of the ANOVA? See, you get these three SST value, sum square total, sum square of the model, and sum square of the residual. With sum square total tells you the total variance in the data. This tells you the sum square of the model, tells you the improvement due to the model, and this tells you the error in the model. So if the model results in better prediction than using the mean, then we expect SSM to be greater than SSR. This is another phenomenon. I'll come to it. So why I am saying about this? Because with the help of these SSM and SST, statistically you can calculate the value of your R square. So if you want to do a manual calculation of R square, that how much variance could be explained, that could be explained by sum squares of the models upon sum square of the this total sum squares. So now if we go through we have got this output already. I have told you about this. This is the output that you have got. Now coming to the model. So our model will tell that album sales at a given point of time I is equal to B0 plus B1 into advertising budget. So B0 is equal to 134.14 plus 0.096 into advertising budget. So if you put your advertising budget as 100, or I have taken as 1000, means the moment you are this 0.096 tells you simply that if you increase your advertising budget by 1000 pounds, 96 extra albums could be sold. If you put it as 100, let's say in the model, this is the 100 pounds I'm spending, the entire album sales could be predicted as 134.14 plus 0.096 into 100. So album sales could be predicted to be 143.74 per extra 100 pounds spent. Now this is the overall prediction that you can get. Are you getting the point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So,
Any confusion? Any confusion till here?
no.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So,
Getting, sir.
do multiple regression tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Sir, don't we need to add the error in this model?
In this model, you can just write the error term, but that error term is actually not identified in our. On the basis of one variable, actually, you cannot identify the error. So,
Okay.
if you have many models, if you have many predictors, then only you can check the models, these errors. And in our case, since we are not getting any errors, in our case, let's see if we have any errors. But actually, those errors, if you draw a scatter plot, let's see whether are we getting any errors. Graphs, legacy dialogues, scatter dot, simple scatter, define. So y-axis is album sales, x-axis is this, options, nothing. Okay.
Error is 0. Standard error is 0 here.
Let's draw a line. In this, you can say that based on one predictor variable between the data points, we are unable to find any. Means there are very less. These are above the lines, but we can say these could be the error terms. Okay, but what is the quantifiable amount, that is we are unable to find in this. So we can only write this equation like that. Album sales is equal to B0 plus B1 advertising plus error term. If we find that error term at any point of time, then it will be 143.74 plus that error term. Else we can only say that if we increase the advertising budget by 100 at any point of time, there is chances of getting this 143.74 number of albums sold for every $100 spent. Pounds. Right?
Yes.
This is the linear regression. When we will come to the multiple regression, we will see that how we can put that error term also in that. Normally, when we do this more in-depth regression using mediation, moderation, or SEM, where covariance is also there, then we put those error terms also. But as of now, you can say that only based on the amount spent, you can predict this much amount. For every 100 pounds, you can predict 143 at any given point of time. Based on the previous data, you can say that even after 1 year at any given point of time, if we spend 100 pounds, the number of sales of the album will be 143.74. Right?
Okay.
So we will be continuing with this multiple regression and this logistic regression, because first I want it to be continued. Today actually we got delayed due to some technical issues. I'll see that doesn't happen tomorrow, and we'll be covering that all. Now I want to.
Sir, you said that we have to check about the normal distribution and whether the data is heteroscedastic or not. So do we have to check multi-collinearity also in case the data is time series, and how? If yes, how?
Of course, you have to check multi-collinearity, but what is the concept of multi-collinearity?
So not sure. And does it apply only for time series?
No, it doesn't only apply for time series. It applies for every independent variable. Multi-collinearity is the concept which states that whether there is a correlation between your independent variables or not, or your predictor variables. Right?
Okay.
Let's say I am having two predictor variable x1 and x2.
Yes.
And if there is a correlation, high correlation between the two, how can we predict that which one is affecting y, x1 or x2? Can we, if there is a relationship, high correlation between x1 and x2, can we say that which one is exactly affecting the y? Huh?
No, it's difficult to say that.
It's difficult to say that. So what I'm saying exactly, for checking multicollinearity, what you need? At least two predictor variables.
Okay.
So here we had only one predictor variable. Now, the moment we will move on to multiple regression, we will check all these multicollinearity, which is checked by value inflated factor and this tolerance value. And it is not only about the time series data. If you have more than one predictor variable, you have to check multicollinearity also.
And so for checking the homogeneity of variance, you are doing Leven's test. Even if the data is time series, still for heteroscedasticity, we'll do Leven's test only, or there's some other test for that purpose?
Leven's test.
Okay.
So time series data is nothing. Data taken, the data which I have, see, if the data
taken on chronological basis over time. Yeah.
The data which I have taken today is also advertising spent over a period of 200 days. Are you getting?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That is not the advertising spent only on one day. That is advertising spent over 200 days. So time series data is no more different than you are taking the data points at different point of times. That's
so
it.
If you are taking advertising data over a number of over a period of time, that's also time series data only. Yes.
Of course it is, because you are taking at different point of times. I have not taken, let's say We just say that this is the data for 1 month. The moment we categorize that 200, there were this advertising spends were done 200 times for a particular month, and now we are taking only that 1 month. Then we will say that okay, it's not a time series kind of thing.
Yes.
Okay. We will say that this is a cross-sectional study rather than a longitudinal study.
But even if we take that data on a daily basis, that again becomes a time series only. If we are taking daily data.
This is the data on daily basis over 200 days in a year.
Okay.
At different point of times. So homogeneity of variance, you will check if you have another category and your data is spread across that category. Let's say you have taken the stock performance of a particular company, right?
Yes.
Over a period of 1 year, let's say.
Yes.
I hope, how many days are there in stock days? 250 or 60 days might be there.
Yeah.
If we exclude the weekends,
exclude the Saturdays and Sundays. Yeah.
Now, if I am saying that I want to check this performance on NSE and BSE both.
Yes.
This is the case where we have to check the heterogeneity also.
Okay.
Because now we are seeing that our data, though it's a time series, but it belongs to two different categories. One exchanges or one traded on NSE, another traded on BSE. Is there homogeneity across the data or not?
Okay.
So homoscedasticity is a very important concept. Normality is the first and foremost concept. But if you want to, what I said, from the last class, I have brought in a new concept that is called bootstrapping.
Yeah, we can do bootstrapping so that issue of normality is resolved.
That is the beauty of bootstrapping, that if you are violating all the assumptions,
yes,
then you have to write only one thing in your article, that I have performed a bootstrapping and bias correctness method, BCA method, and on that I have taken, the reader will understand itself that okay, you have met the violations of the assumptions, but you have corrected it through bootstrapping. What bootstrapping actually does, see, normality is a concept where your data lies beyond that normal range, that curve.
Yes.
Through bootstrapping, what you do, you increase the size of the confidence intervals. So what exactly you are trying to do? You are extending your data set. You are extending your normal distribution like this. Let me show you an example. Preparatory class. Let's say there was one situation where your data was normally distributed.
Yes.
Are you able to see this graph? This sorry. Let me share. Yeah. No, I have to share that.
Yeah.
Now are you able to see?
Yes, it has just come.
Now let's assume this data is skewed. This is normally distributed data.
Yes.
Having a very short span or very short length. Let's say this data is skewed. Some of the area will be covered into the normal distribution. Some might be skewed. So by bootstrapping, what exactly we are doing? We are doing the case 2.
Okay.
The moment you are extending your confidence intervals, what will happen? More and more data will come under this normal distribution.
Yes.
So bootstrapping does nothing else. It just increases your confidence intervals so that more and more data could be accommodated into the normal distribution curve, those which were previously skewed. It makes the mirror image of those data. So means suppose if you have a sample size of 100, I have already said increasing the sample size will increase the chances of normal distribution. So, and also your homoscedasticity. This is the case of homoscedastic data, having a larger set of variance. Okay. So what will happen in that case? Bootstrapping will make the mirror images and bring all your data into this normal distribution curve.
Yes, I understood that. Yes.
So bootstrapping is the one method where if you are unable, see, you want to do a prediction, you have found that there exists a linear relationship. Since there is a linear relationship, there is no point in creating. Somebody said we can create the log. Log will convert this data into normal, it's fine. But the moment you will go in doing its regression, y won't be y is equal to a plus bx. It will be a to the power bx. Okay, it will create its logistic function.
Okay.
So never go for, in case of regression, never convert into logarithm. We'll see in logistic regression how we take the logit function. I hope I have shared with you one PDF file. If you people have gone through that PDF file, you could have very easily understood the concept of basic correlation and its logit function. There I have given one example of how we convert this logit function and then arrive at a conclusion.
Okay, sir.
The word logistic means there is no linear relationship. So if there is a linear relationship and you want to estimate y based on the x which is linearly associated but not normally distributed, not having any kind of homoscedasticity, not meeting any violation, not meeting any of the assumptions, violating all the assumptions except linearity, how will you go for the linear regression? So that there bootstrapping comes to your help.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Okay, so bye for today. And yes, I need to discuss it on a serious note. How many of you have practiced that this